Yo, what's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome into the Bulls Report. My name is Patrick Seatman. As we got a pretty big time report the morning of the NBA trade deadline from Chris Haynes, as he says the Bulls look to remain competitive after this year's NBA trade deadline, saying that they would like to move up in the Eastern Conference. So on today's video, before we actually go live here on the channel in a couple of hours, I just wanted to break down some targets that maybe to look out for the Bulls at this year's deadline. And I'll tell you what, I'm kind of starting to get excited about our Bulls again. That was a pretty big time win against the Timberwolves now a couple of days ago. Coby White looked fantastic. You know, honestly, like I've loved the development of Ayo Dosunmu, and you know what, I wouldn't mind seeing the Bulls, in a play-in tournament game scenario because, in a perfect world, if I was personally running the team, I would have liked them to be sellers today and ship everybody, but maybe you could trade LaVine for maybe a win now piece and have some fun for the rest of the season. But we are going to be going live here in a couple hours here on the channel, so hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss it. I will be live taking questions directly for you guys. We actually might maybe even live right now by the time you are seeing this, so make sure you check it out, subscribe, and tune in for when we do so. So the number one name I kind of thought of when I was connecting dots when I got this report from Chris Haynes was, what about a guy like Klay Thompson? And, I really doubt that the Warriors are going to plan on moving off a guy like Klay. Like, I don't know if they would just break up that nucleus, this year to try to, go over the top, for maybe – obviously, getting a guy like LaVine would make them better next season, and maybe not this season, but maybe they three-team trade. Maybe it's a Caruso and LaVine for Klay, and the Bulls get Moody and some picks. That's the first guy I thought of because anytime you go check any bookmaker or FanDuel and it says like Klay Thompson next team odds, it's always the Bulls in there. So maybe it's a trade of LaVine, Caruso, and then I don't know. Maybe the Warriors send you back Klay, Moses Moody, and a couple of picks. That was a name I thought of just because of how many times the Bulls get connected to Klay. But again, I don't necessarily think that is too realistic. And, maybe it's a guy like Jerami Grant as well from Portland where, maybe the Bulls think like that combination of Patrick Williams, Jerami Grant, Vooch, Coby White, and then maybe if they do move off DeRozan and like Caruso at the 2 spot, that's a pretty good unit. Like, I mean, you'd have had the two really long wing defenders in Williams and Jerami Grant, with Jerami Grant being, more offensive minded. I think Patrick Williams obviously a lot more defensive minded. Pair him up with Vooch, and then, Caruso being the, Caruso. I mean, there's no real other way to describe him besides he is Caruso, just winning basketball at its finest. With Coby White, I mean, that's a hell of a lineup that you could run out there. So those are the two Western Conference names that I thought of immediately. I also did think of Lauri Markkanen as another name. We know the Jazz, they're floating around 500, and maybe they want to, continue this rebuild and just continue, acquiring draft capital. Maybe the Bulls send them, like, I don't know, Patrick Williams and a couple of firsts for a guy like Lauri. But honestly, if I had to predict it for the Bulls trade deadline kind of scenarios here, I think they're going to move off Zach LaVine, and I think they're kind of not like win now piece, but like I guess like buyer's piece would be a guy like Bogdanovich and Joe Harris from the Detroit Pistons. The contracts actually end up matching. The Pistons wouldn't have to give up any draft picks. I don't think any team would actually give up one of their draft picks for LaVine, considering he's coming off the surgery he will be next season and due to his contract. But they get to move off two guys, Bogdanovich and Harris, couple of contracts they don't want on their books for a pretty talented player in Zach LaVine. So that's the trade that I think will go down. I am still waiting on that notification of LaVine being dealt to the Detroit Pistons, but just kind of wanted to get you guys that report from Chris Haynes and kind of piece together what guys I think the Bulls could go get. But hey, if you would go get a Bogdanovich, have him coming off the bench with the Joe Harris, have another shooter, it would be fun. It would definitely make this Bulls team better. And I was kind of looking back on it. Little side note, Rand. I was actually talking to a couple of the guys in the office last night before we left, and I was saying, like, what a deal Coby White is really on. Like, Coby White might have the best contract in the NBA, considering what he's done since LaVine's injury, averaging 20 plus, being super efficient from downtown, like just really developing super nicely into the player he is today. Like, what a contract he's on. And then also Ayo Dosunmu. I think both those guys are on a great contract, and it's kind of setting the Bulls up. Like, if they were to move off, LaVine, DeRozan and Vooch. Like, move off those big three. Like, the Bulls could be buyers, maybe obviously not this trade deadline, but what if they just take all of their future draft capital that they get from those three and you go bring in a true superstar, and then you would have really, cost-effective contracts in Coby White, in Ayo Dosunmu, in Patrick Williams, these young and up-and-coming players who may not be all-stars in the league, but they're a hell of a role players, and they could complement a true number one very, very nicely. Maybe that's a Zion. Maybe that's a Joel Embiid. And obviously that wouldn't be this year, but I was just kind of thinking about that. The Bulls, they do have some good contracts. I know it looks kind of, obviously not the most optimistic right now. It's tough to where the Bulls are at, but they got a lot of good young players on great deals who are locked up for the next, obviously Coby White and Ayo, the next 2 seasons after this, which, are some great contracts. Now, I'm going to kind of wrap up my thoughts, kind of go over a couple more players that I do think the Bulls could end up buying today here at the NBA trade deadline. But I want to tell you guys about Prize Picks. If you guys head to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use promo code CLNS, you guys will get a first deposit match up to $100. The link for that is in the comment section and description of today's show. Get hooked up today. That's Prize Picks. Daily fantasy sports made easy, and prizepicks.com/CLNS and code CLNS. Get that first deposit match right now. Now, another team that I think could be, maybe trading for maybe a Levine-Caruso combo here is, I would hate it, but it's the Lakers. I keep thinking back to the Lakers because we keep hearing the reports, and I don't know if they would want to take on Levine, and now the fact that he's not playing for the rest of this season, but they want Caruso so bad, and they want a lineup of, obviously not this year, but of a Levine, Caruso, Reeves, Bron, and AD, and that's their 5, and maybe they give the Bulls a Rui Hachimura or a D'Angelo Russell. Maybe this is also, I just don't want D'Lo on the team, and I just keep having this feeling that he will get dealt to the Bulls at a point, but I could see that maybe being a trade where the Bulls remain, competitive. But also, I don't want the Bulls to be scared of this mindset where it's like, oh, if we want to remain competitive, we need to keep DeMar DeRozan and Nikola Vucevic. I think the success story of the Bulls this season has been Coby White, has been Ayo Dosunmu, has been Alex Caruso. You can keep that nucleus and of Patrick Williams, and then you can even keep it Andre Drummond if you would like. But if you move off Vooch, DeRozan, and Levine still at this year, get a ton of draft capital and maybe some veteran expiring contracts that can help you compete and being really fun and young and up-and-coming kind of play-in team and go make some noise, maybe in the first round of the playoffs. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility, and I would almost encourage that for the Bulls because I think we've seen with the Zach LaVine injury, the greatest addition that we've seen and the greatest upgrade to this Bulls roster was already on the roster. It was Coby White. It was him taking his play to the next level. And I couldn't imagine to see Patrick Williams, him getting more shot attempts, him up in his usage rate, what he could potentially be. It's time to finally figure out kind of what you have with your own, and I think the only way you do that is to move off DeRozan, Levine, and Vooch, and you could still remain competitive, and you could still almost be buyers at the NBA trade deadline. But just kind of wanted to give you guys my final thoughts here around the Chicago Bulls, obviously with the trade deadline here today at 2 p.m. Central Time. Make sure you guys tune in. We could be live on the channel right now, so go jump in that live chat, ask me a question, and also make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. Stay up to date on the latest around your Bulls. See you guys next time. As always, go Bulls.